So I've decided to make a video because it's easier, I think, than trying to type it on a blog or anywhere else. I want to share with you what I know about my adoption and what I'm about to embark on. I know a lot of you are following my journey, and not everybody knows the whole story. I've never really talked about it. Growing up, I remember for about the first time, I think I was 4 when I started kindergarten. I started early. We had just relocated from the Sacramento area to Fort Bragg, a little tiny town on the coast in Northern California. And I remember that's when kids started to ask me, why don't you look like your mom and dad? And I remember without hesitation, I would always respond, because I was adopted. Other 5-year-olds were like, oh, okay. That was enough for them. They just want a response. I don't ever remember a time where my parents sat down and gave me the talk that I was adopted. I just always knew. I remember in kindergarten, Katie Hantu's mom asked a question. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember telling her, it's none of your business, because I was always told to tell adults that. My parents told me from the time I was little, you don't tell anybody any information, you tell them it's none of your business. And I remember Katie's mom got offended that, a child would talk to me that way. And my mom got really defensive and said, well, we've given her permission to. That was it. I remember growing up, people would ask questions, naturally, it was curious. They'd ask about the adoption, maybe because they had never met anybody who was adopted or adopted children. And I remember my parents always took over the conversation. If somebody tried to talk to me, they took it over. And if, heaven forbid, anybody ever asked, Mindy, do you want to go back to Korea one day? Do you want to try to find your birth parents? That didn't go over well. I don't remember asking a lot of questions growing up. It was never an open subject. I remember probably around 6 or 7, I went through the phase of wanting a sibling. I was bored and I was lonely. I didn't see a lot of people. I stayed home with my mom, who was like paranoid, never let me out of her sight. I didn't get to go play with other kids. I didn't have cousins. Like, we literally cut ourselves off from everybody. We moved from Lincoln, California, where my dad had successful businesses. And, they were from that area. They grew up in that area, to move to the coast. And he sold his businesses and went to work for this lumber company. Traded his Corvette, his motorcycle, all this stuff for like a blue station wagon. And moved to this little rural town. And, my mom didn't have any friends. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. They still are. And so all we had was the congregation, but they never got close to anybody. They're not really people you get close to. They don't have a lot of, they're not people you just go make friends with. But, I wanted a sibling, and I remember asking over and over and over and over again, like a kid that age does. And for me, I'm still that type of person that if I want to know something, or somebody requests something of me, or I hear something that I don't understand, I'm going to keep asking until I understand. You can't just slip stuff past me. I'm very observant. I want to know all the logistics, and if something doesn't make sense, I'm not just going to go along with it. And I think that's a good thing to have. I'm not going to apologize for that. It drives a lot of people crazy. But I remember, I don't remember how long I'd been asking. I don't remember what I said. I just remember that I wanted a brother or sister, and I kept begging and begging. Why? Why? And then my mom, it wasn't like, she sat down and talked to me. It was like she was the victim. Hysterical, like, why was I doing this to her? And she cried. She's like, if I could, I would. I can't have kids. And like, that was it. It was like, when you're a child and you get that kind of reaction, it's like, whoa, you can read body language. And I remember probably around 12 years old, around there, I don't even remember what led up to it, but apparently I was asking a lot about who I was, or saying that I wished I knew the information. And it led to one of those dramatic outbursts again, and I really brought her outside, and she led me up into the house, into my dad's office. They always had these file cabinets where they saved everything. Everything was under lock and key. And she flips open this, adoption thing, lays down on the ground, is crying. She's like, see, I told you, it's all we know. If I knew more, I would tell you. And that's traumatizing. So it was you can't even sit and read anything or really absorb it when somebody's having this emotional outburst and breakdown next to you. So my whole life has been like this. There was no encouragement about, finding out who I am or any talk. It was, that was it. I was very limited. I remember, my mom loved the show Unsolved Mysteries. We'd watch it as a family, and then, oh my God, anytime there was a reuniting of family members or somebody in search of their birth parent or their birth child, my mom would like flip out. I will never forget how she would react. You could see her sit up straight in the chair. She'd look at my dad, look over, and like he would be in La La Land. I guess he was tuning her out or just zoned out, whatever. And then she would start this like, and she'd like always clear though. That was her thing. That's how she'd get her attention. His attention, and a lot of times he'd be like completely in La La Land, and then also she'd be like, David, and you're like, what? And she's like, change it, And so it was like always a no. So I mean, I always was raised that there was never any encouragement like that. When you get older, if you want to find your birth parents or your birth family or your history or something, then you can. It wasn't ever like if you ever decide to, we'll help you or we'll support you. It was nothing. There was no support. I mean, growing up, I'm not even sure what their plan was. I mean, they never talked about college. I mean, they always just said, we're never going to let you get married. You'll live in this house till you're 40. I mean, I think they were joking. I don't know. But they didn't have any big plan for me. I don't know what they wanted. They didn't let me participate in anything in school. They ripped me out of school in my freshman year. I don't even know what they wanted for me. But, I just, growing up, once I left home, I ran home at 15 after my dad beat me several times, and I just could not think of life. I never looked back. And I remember throughout the time after I left home, people have always asked me the same questions. Oh, you're adopted. What do you know about the Korean culture? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, I don't want to go to Korea. I don't want to be Asian. A lot of me not wanting to be Asian was growing up in a Caucasian populated school. I was one of like 6 Asian kids. One was my next door neighbor who was adopted from the Philippines, and another kid that was my age who was adopted from Korea. Then there was my friends. There were 3 sisters who were half Korean, and their dad was Caucasian. They grew up in Fort Bragg. But I mean, I don't know if they got made fun of, but I mean, all of them had good home lives. The 2 boys that were adopted, their parents loved them and they accepted them, and that was it. Like, I never felt that. And I never talked to anybody about this. I just never felt like I fit in. I didn't fit in at school because I didn't look like anybody. My parents were Jehovah's Witnesses, so that was weird in itself, knocking on doors. I never was able to participate in any school activities. I was never able to date anybody. I was never able to play sports. I just felt like a freak, And in kindergarten when I started, I remember I started displaying some really, like, bad OCD tendencies. I remember the teacher talking to my parents about it. And I don't remember what the outcome was, but I remember them saying, like, Mindy does this and this and this. And again, I don't know what happened, but I do remember it being pointed out. And so, like, I knew it was wrong. It wasn't normal. I remember breaking out in hives, like, all over my body. And there were just weird things that happened. Like, and I knew it wasn't normal, and I just couldn't help it, And then growing up, there was things I did, and, my mom would be like, man, I don't know where you get this from. You weren't raised that way. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I can't help myself. Like, this is just who I am. I didn't realize that, this is probably, things that came from being adopted or, hereditary or mannerisms that came from my birth parents. I don't know. But I remember saying things to her like, oh, I wish that maybe someday in the future there'll be this thing you can walk through. And all it does is tell you what, you are. I'm like, because I want to know what I am, because all they told me that I remember, and I don't remember a time that I was actually told this, but I was told that I was born in Seoul, South Korea. I was 7 pounds, something ounces. When she flipped open the adoption papers, I did read that my birth mother was 23 years old. She got pregnant by some guy, and she said she was a waitress, but I don't know if she met him at a restaurant, and that she gave me it for adoption. I lived in a foster home, and there was a teenage kid. And I remember as a kid being totally, like, fixed on, like, I wonder what my brother's like. People want connections. I mean, we're not supposed to be alone. There's a reason, like, we feel that way. We want connections, deep connections with people. And, my mom's like, I don't know, Mindy. I don't know. Why do you keep asking? Because I guess I thought it'd be cool to have a sibling. I wanted to know. I spent my first 9.5 months in this foster home with this lady who had a son. I mean, I don't know. I want to know something about me. And I don't know. She never supported, but I mean, they told me that I was born in Seoul, that I was born either on January 11th or 12th. Most papers say the 11th, but one part says the 12th. And so the birth certificate that's through the state of California says the 12th. That's all I know. They said that my name was Min Hee Kim. They told me it was MIN-HE-KIM. The only thing that I saw growing up was this little clipping that they put in the paper, in the Lincoln Herald, I think, in the town that, I lived in whenever I was whenever they, brought me over from Korea, supposedly, and I stayed there until I started kindergarten. And that was it. I didn't realize until a couple years ago that on that little clip had the adoption agency they said that they got me through. There's no record of it. I can't find it on the internet. I can't find it anywhere. So that's all I knew. And I said I was fine with it because I didn't ever have a choice to not be fine with it. I didn't realize that I had been programmed to react a certain way or to feel a certain way. It wasn't until we'd been married for a year and Ryan surprised me with a trip to Playa del Carmen for our second anniversary, because I was 6 months pregnant on our first anniversary. And so he orchestrated all this, and I was like, I need my passport. So I went to get my passport, and they say, oh, well, you were born out of the country. We can't give you a passport unless you have your naturalization certificate. I had stopped talking to my family in 2008. This was in 2011. I asked them for the naturalization certificate. They replied that they didn't have it. I'm like, what? You didn't have it? They said no. The stories changed throughout the years. I mean, it went from they didn't have it, they gave it to me, they lost it, it was destroyed. I don't know what it is. Story of my life. And so anyways, fast forward, I just gave up. I was like, you know what? I'll never be able to go. I was like, we'll never go out of the country. I'll never travel. Whatever. It was too hard. And I was in a totally different mindset then, because I was just weak-minded. I'd been beat down. I was tired. I was depressed. Had anxiety. I had all these things. Well, then I became a coach. A year into being a coach, I'm in Miami at the Super Saturday, and they announced there's a cruise. And it's going to be in March of 2013, going to Grand Cayman Islands and Cozumel, but you need your passport. You could register that day and reserve your spot, but you were going to have a certain time frame to get your passport. Well, I said right there, okay, I'm going to get it done. Well, I encountered problem after problem. I started on January 25th. And I posted about it on Facebook, and I was like, I give up. I just give up. Luckily, one of the coaches on our team did some legwork, helped me figure out how to get it taken care of without having to pay $500. She did the legwork for me, helped me out, and then I started seeing that people were supporting me, and they were rooting for me. It was a nightmare trying to get my naturalization certificate. I actually did talk to my dad for the first time somewhere in the summer of 2013. Oh yeah, the trip was, March of 2014. I found out in January of 2013 that the cruise was there. I talked to him one time, and I mean, you could hear there was no compassion, love, care, or concern, and that my dad didn't want to talk to me. And I finally, for the first time, asked him on that call, after he kept hanging up on me, he was defensive, and I asked him, why did you beat me growing up? Why did you do this? Why did you hate me so much? And he kept hanging up on me, and then he just got nasty. But end of story. I never got it from them. Gave up. Whatever. They still tried contacting me repeatedly, even though I've asked them to not contact me. That they're not going to have any contact with my children. I don't know what their problem is. They're crazy. But over the course of this, I had to go after step after step after step. I had to write tons of letters, call tons of agencies to be able to get all the documents. And so in October of 2013, I finally got all the documents. I held in my hand everything I needed, because it was kind of you have to have this to get this, but you have to have this be first. It was it was I wanted to give up. And if it was not for my Beachbody family, if it wasn't for the personal development and the confidence that I had grown into the person I was, where I just refused to give up no matter what, because I wanted to go on that trip, and just because I just didn't want to give up. I didn't want to settle for this life like this, and I didn't want to give up. I ended up, I think it was October or November, I ended up getting my passport, a certified copy of my adoption records from the county I was supposedly adopted in, and also my naturalization certificate. It was, I could breathe. And at that point, once I had all that, it didn't matter anymore about my parents. I stopped being angry at them. Like, I don't want to talk to them. I have no care or compassion or love or respect or sympathy for them at all. But I mean, everything has changed. I was just like, okay, I don't need them anymore. I do not ever have to contact them anymore. I don't ever have to put up with them hurting me. Or, I mean, they were being revengeful, and then they just kept lying. It was great. And because I had to contact a bunch of agencies in Korean, so I thought, oh, okay. I contacted like the Korean adoption services, the welfare services there, the embassy there, all these different things. I couldn't find. They have no record of me. And then then finally I get this package in the mail from my dad saying that here's all your records, that, you know, all this stuff. I don't know if it's the originals. It was just, you know, a little thing. I went through it. I had it, and I held on to it for, I don't know, weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I don't know what it was. I couldn't open it. The day I opened it, I'll just never forget how I felt. Like, I just received these series of emails over the course of like the 2 months prior to that, where I just kept finding out that there was no record of me anywhere. Nowhere in Korea. Not in the hospitals, not in the foster care, not in the adoption, you know, registry, nothing. It was like I didn't even exist. So, you know, I finally got the guts to open up this package. And I don't know why I didn't open it. I don't even know. I just couldn't. Ryan went to open it one day. I said, don't open it. I don't even know why. I don't know. I just asked him not to open it. I remember sitting there opening it, and I don't know. It was so depressing. It like kicked me into like this depression mode for a couple months. But it was like all that I had about me just resorted to this stack of papers. Everything was evasive. I did find in the papers that I was, you know, it did list my birth mother's name. It listed the hospital that I was born in, and the town that I was born in, which was not Seoul, and that my name was actually spelled differently than what I'd been told it was spelled. Still, you know, I sent all that information, scanned it, and sent it to the, you know, Korean agencies I'd been in contact with. Still nothing about me. So I just stopped it right there. Said I didn't care. And I just went on about my business. Fast forward, you know, one thing that Beachbody says and teaches us is about making connections with people that are a lot like us. So I joined an adoption group on Facebook, I don't know, probably 2 months ago. Posted there a little bit here and there. And I asked a question the other day about if there was any, you know, Korean adoptees in there. And somebody reached out to me, this lady that's, you know, decade older than me. And she was really kind to me. You know, she was like, you know, she told me her story. How she just found out she was adopted. You know, she's 50 years old, and just found out she was adopted a couple of years ago. And, you know, this crazy story. And, you know, she's been so kind to me. She referred me on to a friend who had adopted 2 girls from China to talk to her. So I talked to her. She was really nice, went out of her way to help me and provide me information. She didn't have to. And then she told me about, you know, this person that can help you find your birth parents and connect you, and has these adoption retreats and all these things. I remember thinking, adoption retreat, why would I ever go there? I'm fine. Then she told me, she's like, hey, there's 2 Korean adoptee groups you should join. So I was like, oh, I'll join that. When I joined it, you know, I posted a little bit about my story, very evasive. And I can't tell you how much of a difference it's made. They've been just as supportive as Team Beachbody. Like, I've had this, like, everybody's like encouraging, and everybody's like receptive to what people post. They're respectful. And it was like, for the first time in my life, it's like, yeah, I've known people who've been adopted. I've known people who had really bad adoption stories. I've known people who have crazy parents. But like, for the first time, it's like I had people that got me. They were Asian kids raised by somebody of a different race in a totally different country, totally not understood. They're not one or the other. And it was like, I don't know, it was somebody who actually understood me, like understood how I felt growing up. That all these things that I was thinking was totally normal. Maybe not for the people I was being raised with or around, but I mean, I cannot tell you how enlightening it's been, and how empowering it is, and how like freeing it is that I'm not crazy. That these are normal feelings, and I just can't believe, like, my parents always said all these things about how you know, they do their research on adopted kids, and you know, they sent a letter saying that they've did research a long time ago. They prepared themselves that oftentimes adoptees, turn on the parents and they're selfish and that they have all these problems and whatever. But like, did they not ever read anywhere that maybe the same kids need a little bit of a different lifestyle instead of just being thrown into like, hey, you're a white kid with these people? I mean, I don't understand what they were thinking. Like, I don't know. I really don't know. I guess it was one-sided. And anyways, these groups have been monumental. I can't tell you, in 2 weeks, I was plugged into this website called 23andMe. It is the future. What I was wanting for all these years was a little machine that you go through and you come out and they tell you what you are. You're half white, half black, half, Hispanic, half Asian, whatever it is. This is what I've been looking for. I mean, you don't walk into a little machine that tells you actually have this thing and you have to spit in this cup. Somebody said, be prepared to spit. They weren't lying. It's like this whole vial. But I just opened it. I got it the other day and I finally opened it last night. There really wasn't much to look at. But anyways, I have it now. I opened it. I don't know when I'm going to do it yet. But I just wanted to share with the world what I'm going to be doing. A little bit about my background, about how I was raised, and that, I don't know, it hit me. It finally hit me the other day that I don't know anything about myself, and I'm not okay with that. I've never been okay with it. I was just told that I had to be okay with it. So, anyways, I'm going to do this kit. You send it off. It takes about 4 weeks to get back. I don't know why I don't want to do it. The only thing I can think of is that, what if I hit another dead end? But I don't know. We'll see. So I just thought I'd share that with you. And if you want to follow my journey, great. I hope that there's other people out there who have the courage to start their journeys that they're scared of. And they have the courage and the support that they need to get started. Stay tuned. May be nothing. Maybe something that I find that I fills the holes in who I am, or maybe something that I don't want to find out, or maybe something crazy. I'll share a little bit more as this goes on. I've had some great support that I want to talk about, but I got to go get kids. So I just want to share this with you. This was, I think, one of the hardest videos I've had to make. I don't know why. So thanks.